Hey guys, it's Nick with the CMU Outdoor program again. In this video, I'm just going to explain how to use two different stoves that we have. One is the Camp Chef Everest 2-burner stove, and the other one is the 4-burner Partner Steel stove. So again, we're just looking for a nice flat area to set our stove up. So the first thing we're gonna do is set our table up. It's not super exciting when your food is running out of your pans and cooking utensils because you're on uneven ground or it's really tilted. So make sure you just have a nice even area. These tables are pretty easy to use. They have a buckle holding everything together. Once you undo that buckle, it's going to roll out into a nice square shape, and there is a pouch at the bottom that contains everything that we're going to need to assemble this. So you're going to find a nice flat spot to use to set your table on. That can be a rock or a cooler or something else. The black part is the bottom. It has these little screw holes in it, and the blue part is going to be the top. You don't want to set the top in the dirt or the snow, so that's why it's nice to find an area like this to assist you to set it up. So you're going to take all of the components out. There's 4 legs and 2 crossbars. So there's 6 pieces total. The legs look like this. They have a screw at the bottom, and the crossbars look like this. They have some holes and rivets at the top. So when you're setting these crossbars up, you're going to want to make sure that you're going in the right direction. You can set this up incorrectly and go parallel with the folds in the table, but to do it accurately, you want to be going perpendicular with the folds in the table. So then you just line the leg up with the holes in the crossbar and the holes in the table, and you screw those in. Nice and easy. Okay, so we've got our table set up. We got it in a nice flat spot. I'm going to lift it up here. You're going to see that the bars are perpendicular to the folds where they should be. The legs are nice and tight. If you're on ground that is not quite even, you can use rocks or pile up a little bit of dirt under the legs just to kind of even it out and stabilize it how you need to. But our table's nice and stable now. Give it a shake, nice and sturdy. It's not going anywhere. And once we kind of even it out, it's going to work great for us. So we're just going to go over the 2 types of stoves we have again. These ones are really good for car camping. They're nice and big, good simmer control. The first one is the Camp Chef Everest. Okay, this one has 2 burners, and this one takes the green Coleman canisters of propane. You can find them at REI or Cabela's or whatever, but the small 1-pound green canisters are what fits into this stove. And the next stove we have is going to be the Partner Steel 4-burner stove. This one is beefy. This is like the Cadillac of outdoor stoves. This thing is sick. It folds down into 4 burners. Nice simmer control. You can cook 4 different things at a time. It's super epic. This one has a hose that splits, and it takes the big 20-pound bottles of propane. So if you're going to take this stove, make sure you have room for a huge bottle of propane as well, because you're going to need to hook it up. Alright, starting with the Everest 2-burner stove, we're going to just pop this bad boy open. You can see it's got the windscreens built in as well as the grate to set your pots and pans on. And most importantly, we've got the propane connection hose here. So you want to make sure you have this because obviously it's not going to work without a propane connection. The lid acts as a windscreen for the back, and there's some slits in the side windscreens that you can kind of hook it into so that it stabilizes itself and kind of stays in place. And that's going to help it, just be generally solid while you're cooking. The hose you're going to want to put into the propane slot on this end of the stove here. there's a connection piece that you're going to want to screw in. It's actually not super easy to connect it. You're going to have to apply a little bit of pressure to make sure that you get the connection correct. Um, so fiddle with it for a minute. You'll feel it when the threads catch and you're able to screw it in. So now we've got the hose connection hooked up. Like I said, you'll feel it catch. It's similar to putting the lid on a jar. You basically just screw it on until you can't anymore. But you do want to make sure this connection is tight. Any place that propane is escaping is going to be maybe detrimental. It could be dangerous. So you just want to make sure all of your connections are legit, no cross threading, and that it's all nice and secure. And then once that happens, you're going to want to grab one of these 1 pound bottles of propane, these Coleman bottles. They're green. You can get them at most outdoor sporting stores. This is just going to hook into the end of the hose here. So you just screw it in. The threads, again, make sure they're not cross-threaded. The little point on the end here is what's going to activate the flow of propane from the bottle. So you're just going to screw it on. Again, nice and secure, and it's just going to kind of rest on the table right next to the stove. Now we have a nice and secure connection. The bottle is connected to the top part of the hose, and the bottom part of the hose is connected well to the stove. There's no leaks, and we're ready to light this thing up. Lighting this stove is pretty easy. It has a self-igniter on it, which is the red button. So you just want to turn the dial until you hear gas coming out of the burner, and then you hit the igniter button, and it should light itself. If it doesn't, you can always use a lighter or a match just to get it going. You can kind of see here that I have some flames going. You turn it up, it gets hotter. You turn it down, it gets lower. It has great simmer control. You can kind of turn it to whatever temperature you need. It's sort of like cooking on a range top. It's pretty great, pretty easy to use, and really solid. So the next one is the Partner Steel 4-burner stove. Again, this thing is really amazing just because you can cook some pretty excellent meals on this. Cook 4 things at a time. It's kind of better than the stove I have at home, to be honest. But we just pop this open. There's 2 different grates on each side. They're not locked in, so they're kind of free. You got to make sure that they're not flopping around and going crazy. We can just kind of set those to the side because the hose is also tucked in to those compartments. So let's talk about hooking the hose up really quick. You can see it has a Y connection where it has kind of a split for 2 hoses. That's going to be for 2 of the burners on each side. So you got 1 hose for 2 burners, and that way you don't have to run all 4 at the same time if you don't need to. Again, we're using the 20-pound bottle of propane, the big guy. I don't need to show you how to hook a propane line up. That should be pretty intuitive. But once you hook that up, then you're going to hook up the 2 corners of the Y line to the stove. So again here, you're going to want to apply a little bit of pressure just to get those threads to catch. And you want to screw that in until it's nice and tight. We're looking for a secure connection with no leaks. So do that to both sides, and then your stove is going to be set up and ready to go. Double check your propane line, make sure that's tight, and just make sure everything is nice and solid in there. The final step to setting up this stove is to take the grates and kind of line them up to the propane holes that they're attached to. You'll see them on the stove. You just want to slot those in. Again, we're looking for a secure connection. If your grate is not sitting flat down in the stove, you don't have it connected right. So you want to make sure it's flat. You want to make sure it's sitting well. And I even like to kind of pull them in towards the connection just to make sure that the gas is flowing how it's supposed to be. So you're going to do that to both sides and connect it nice and solidly. The great thing about this stove is that these two pieces detach. So you can have two individual two burner stoves going at the same time essentially. Which is why it's also great that you have that Y connection with the propane hose. You can be doing two different individual things on two different sides of your table or your cooking surface. You can connect them together to cook it all, like if you have a big skillet or something to lay on there. It's a pretty versatile stove and it's pretty awesome. Again, the simmer control is great. Lighting it is pretty easy. There's no self ignition on this one, but you just turn the dial until you hear gas and you can hit it with a lighter or a match. Hopefully, this gives you guys a good idea of how to set up the stoves and practical uses for them. If you have any questions, we can talk about them moving forward. But just remember these two configurations so when you're explaining them to customers, they're able to set them up with ease and efficiency.